Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Camarda, and I am a marketing advisor with the San Francisco SBDC. Today, we're going to be talking to Deborah Baldini, the owner of Biordi Art Imports. And this is one in the first of many, we hope, of Fireside chats. So I'd like to introduce Deborah. She is a transformational retail and fashion luxury industry executive with over 20 years of experience building multi-billion-dollar global businesses, brands, and teams. She has that unique combination of expertise in the fashion, home, and luxury businesses combined with technology, spending half of her professional career in the retail industry and the other in e-commerce and retail technologies. With extensive experience in general management and leading organizations, both as an entrepreneur, as well as a senior leader at Levi Strauss & Company, as a results-driven leader and brand builder with expertise in digital commerce, and her passion is in delivering the exceptional consumer experience and innovation. Welcome, Deborah. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you, Valerie?
I'm well, thank you. So what I want, Deborah, is for this to be a conversation between the two of us. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and feel free to answer as you will and as long as you want to talk. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about your career path before becoming the owner of Biordis.
So I started off at Levi Strauss & Company right out of college, literally a week after I graduated from college, and I had 3 careers there. So I was in sales and merchandising, brand management, and I ran the women's and kids business before I left. I left to go to business school. I went to Haas's Berkeley School of Business, and from there I was stuck on being an entrepreneur. So that was really the changing point for me to go out on my own and try things on my own. So I worked for 3 different startup companies. The first was in fashion technology. So I really moved from the industry, the retail industry, into the technology industry. And then I moved to a gifting company. It was a Hallmark company, which I started, an e-commerce business, where I learned a lot about the customer experience and emotional connections and a lot of things that, of course, you would get from a Hallmark company. And then I was with that sustainable home goods company. So I've had many, many years experience, and all of them really enabled me to be able to go out on my own and for us to purchase Biordi. So I was able to take, all those years of working and doing and learning, and now have been able to actually incorporate all of those learnings into our work here at Biordi.
Deborah, can you tell us what is so special about Biordis?
Well, Biordi Art Imports, we're 75 years old this year. So it's our 75th anniversary, which that in and of itself is pretty fabulous. And we're considered a treasure, a landmark historic store here in North Beach, and a institution in San Francisco. And Biordi started as this place for the Italian community to come and buy their Italian ware. So it might have been ravioli cutters, or it might have been pasta makers. It was ceramics, it was Italian artwork, but it was always this place for the Italian community to come. And over the years, it's evolved into this really beautiful, almost museum-like store for people to come and just feel joy. I mean, I can't really explain it, but when people walk into Biordi, it's just such a happy, joyful place. And Valerie, I know you've been here. So it's unlike any other. I mean, it really is a treasure. There's really no other place like this in the US. And what we have is handcrafted, hand-painted Italian ceramics, home decor, and dinnerware. So it's just this really amazing place. When people walk through the door, they feel happy.
Yeah, I can personally, I agree. I'm like a little kid in a candy store when I walk in there. It's just an exquisite store, beautifully laid out. So I'm really intrigued about you and your husband, Michael, going to Italy on buying trips. I know so many love to be able to, let's write that trip off. So tell us a little bit more about your buying trips to Italy and how often you go, where you go, and how long you go for.
Well, it's definitely one of the perks of owning Biordi is to be able to travel to Italy. We go typically at least once a year, obviously not over the last couple of years, sometimes twice a year. But we're really fortunate to be able to go and meet with these artisans. These are artisan families, so they're not big, warehouses, workshops. These are families that are producing this, and they're really in about 3 different regions. So it's Deruta, or the Umbria, Tuscany, and Sicily. But to give you a taste of what some of those are, so this is very traditional. This is probably the most common Italian ceramics out there. It's from Deruta. Deruta is a place very close to Assisi, and they call it the Mecca of Maiolica, which is, this is all called Maiolica, and it's where Italian ceramics have been produced in exactly the same way for over 500 years. So, I mean, there's also, just to give you an idea, of there's some different types of things. This is also from Deruta, but you'll find this kind of look like in the Amalfi Coast with a lot of lemons. We have something like this also, so much more modern. So that's one of the things that's been really fun about this, is being able to incorporate not only traditional, but also much more modern pieces. We go to Siena, which is one of my favorite places in the world, where they have the contrade. The contrade are the neighborhoods. This happens to be the giraffe contrade or neighborhood. We go to Montelupo. Montelupo is very close to Florence. This piece behind me here is from Montelupo, as is this fabulous piece here. So you can see everything is art. It's unique. It's all handmade. Sicily is also one of the places we go. This happens to be from a place called Sciacca, and this is a testa d'amore, which is the Moorish head. And one more piece I'll show you about our travels to Italy is, this is Desimone. Desimone is from Palermo, Sicily. Her father painted with Pablo Picasso, and so you can see the similarities there. But it's just wonderful going, and we've so missed the last couple of years not being able to go and meet with these artisans, because they are just like incredible people. They're incredible artists, and they've become like family to us.
Wonderful. So how often do you go now that the borders are opening up a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, we're scheduled to go in September. So hopefully we will be able to go in September. It depends, as you know, Italy was very hard hit, but they're actually doing quite well now. So hopefully we'll be back there. We've been able to actually work with the artisans, just via email and all over the last 2 years. We haven't been there for 2 years now, but we will be back, and are really looking forward to it.
So when you do go, how long do you go for? 2 weeks?
Several weeks, because we go to at least 10 different villages. They're mostly, Siena is, a little larger, but many of these are very small villages. And so we go from place to place. And so we're traveling like almost every day. We're moving to like a new location.
Have you found it a little bit more difficult now to get your products through customs?
Since the pandemic, customs has not been such an issue. It actually was a bigger issue with some of the trade, I won't call it wars, but trade things that were going on several years ago. I was having many more problems then than I am now, actually. They were actually testing, they would stop many of our shipments and test for lead, which is actually, it's a good thing. It's not a positive thing. But as you probably know, that we cannot sell, certainly any dinnerware that has lead in it. So there was quite a bit that was stopped over the last couple of years because of that, which held things up. But more recently, it's been because of COVID and the pandemic, as we all have heard. We air everything. We don't ship. So we weren't dealing with the shipping issues, but even the air, we had product that was held up for months from our logistics provider over there, because the US government wasn't allowing big pallets of product to come from Italy. They were using the planes for other things. And so there's certainly been, a lot of disruption over the last year or two because of all of the COVID related things.
So typically from the time you place an order to the time you actually receive it is how long?
It depends on the artisan. Some of our artisans we have ongoing work with. So as soon as we get in shipment, they're working on other products for us. Some artists, it might take 6 to 8 months, but we know who those are. And so we try to plan ahead, but again, there's a lot of things that are out of our control in terms of, getting product here. So we try our best to ensure that we're not, we're aware of that so that we can plan for it.
Wonderful. So tell us what you like about being an entrepreneur, having worked in the corporate environment and then going off on your own. What do you see those differences being?
Yes. Well, I love being an entrepreneur. For me, literally getting up every morning and loving what you do is worth it. And so there hasn't been one day that we've owned Biordi that it's ever felt like work. And I know you hear that, it's somewhat cliche, but it is true because you're doing what you love. And even through the challenging times, and there certainly has been challenging times, that's, to me, that's the most important thing, is just knowing that what I'm doing is what I choose to do. Another really important aspect for me, though, is when you're creating your own company, when you have your own company, you can be sure that the values that you have are aligned to the company values. And I'm sure many people have worked for companies that they have very different values. And that's, for me, has been one of the absolute greatest things. Now, I've worked for some great companies, but, certainly building your own company that is a place that it's like family. The people that work here because they love working here. There's really nothing like that. And being an entrepreneur, you can control all of that.
That's true. That's so true. So what don't you like about being your own boss? Is there anything?
Well, you have to do everything. And I certainly like sweeping the floors and like a lot of those things, cleaning the windows, things that I don't love, but they're things that have to be done. So, there's not a lot of downside. I guess when you are your own boss, you do somewhat miss that, having someone that you're reporting to, that you have to give the numbers to, that you have to, talk about the business. And sometimes when you're on your own and not having that can seem somewhat of an isolated place. And so, just ensuring that you do have those mentors and do have those people that you can still talk to about, the business is, I think, really important, because you do lose something with that, like having to report to someone, having to report, the sales, because it forces you to do things that you may not necessarily do.
That's true. Let me ask you, have you faced any particular challenges during your career path because you were a woman, especially in the technology area?
Well, there's certainly been challenges. But I would say early on in my career at Levi Strauss & Company, I actually was given opportunities because I was a woman. Levi Strauss & Company is an amazing company. They, even at that time, were very much into diversity of thought, diversity of experiences. So I've somewhat benefited in some cases by that. Certainly, I've worked, I think, maybe even harder. I think you oftentimes hear that from women, that you have to work even harder to get the respect. And I think much of that is you put that on yourself, that you need to actually, be at a certain level. And to do that, you've got to make sure that you are successful. But for me overall, it's, I've really not experienced a lot of negativity in being a woman in business. Like even in the technology industry, I was respected for what, my contributions were.
Very good. Not every woman would have the same
Oh, I know, I understand,
So
yes.
lucked out. Okay, so Deborah, tell me, what advice would you give to someone else who's thinking about starting a retail business?
I guess I would say that go into this with your eyes wide open, knowing that there is a lot that goes into owning a retail business today. So if you think about all the different aspects in retail, there's the retail store, and most retailers now have an e-commerce business. So there's retail, there's e-commerce, then there's all the marketing associated with retail, like bringing customers to your store, bringing customers to your website. I happen to have put together roles and responsibilities for my business for my employees and myself, just to look at like what's the work that needs to be done, and just to give you an example of what some of this work is. This is for our business. So these are like the big categories, and then behind each one of these, there's also activities. So there's the strategy of the business. There's the store operations, the openings, the closing, the sweeping, the garbage, like all of those types of things. There's inventory management, there's inventory acquisition, there's margin analysis, there's SKUs, there's all of those good things. There's sales, there's wholesale. We happen to also have a wholesale part of our business. There's picking and packing and shipping, and there's special orders, and there's wedding registries, and there's all types of imagery, and then there's the website and everything associated with it. There's logistics, marketing, social media, product development, customer sat, accounting, and technical support. So there's a huge amount of work to be done. So my advice is like knowing what you're getting into, like up front. Again, either having experienced it yourself, but even if you have, once you're responsible for all of it, having mentors, having other people that you can talk to, and just knowing what it is, and being able to, you have to be focused, you have to be disciplined, you have to be organized in order to actually make it all work in today's environment. So there's a lot of competition, and you have to differentiate yourself and figure out, constantly be thinking about what do you do? How do you go after, this business? And there's many different ways to do it. So you can't be like, oh, I'm just going to open a store. It doesn't work like that. You have to constantly be like thinking about how you're going to drive business.
Right. I heard you say so many different things, wearing many, many hats, development, marketing, which is a big one,
right.
Strategy development, and then the day-to-day operation,
right.
Dealing with your vendors, dealing with employees, delivering customer service. So all those things, I'm not sure, having done marketing advising with all kinds of clients, not all of my retail clients are fully aware of what's all entailed. So
yes.
Your rundown of the various hats you have to wear. So segueing into the hats you have to wear, what are some of the skills you would recommend an entrepreneur have?
Well, I guess first and foremost is not really a skill, but you have to have passion for what you're doing. If you don't, it will not work, because it's like way too much work. So you have to be very passionate about it, and you have to, be motivated. You have to be self-motivated. When it comes down to the skills, I think, having a business acumen, like understanding business, understanding finance. When it comes down to it, it's about making money. Problem solving skills, being able and knowing that there's always going to be challenges, there's always going to be problems, and then not letting that take you down, but just always being, being positive, just always knowing that there's another way to actually do this. Critical thinking skills, problem solving, being flexible, being adaptable, like all of those things. It's a certain being willing to take risks, being willing to like be okay that it's, there's going to be challenges, but you can figure this out. Like all of those things, I think, make for a successful entrepreneur, at least being able to, I've done this for quite a few years now with different companies, and you also get so many learnings along the way. You learn what doesn't work, and it is true. You do learn as much like when there's failures as you do when you're successful.
That's true. So true. So specific to the pandemic, what has been your biggest challenge this past year?
Well, the biggest challenge was really in the first several months. For us, it was. And it's because there was so much uncertainty. We had no idea. We'd put like all of our life savings into this. We had no idea what was going to happen. So I would say, last really March, April, May, June, it was just like, oh my gosh, how can we keep this going? So we made different decisions than we would have made before. We did things like Biordi Art Imports never had a sale. Like in 42 years, they never had a sale. I had inventory, I needed to move inventory, and I needed to move it quickly so that I could still generate cash. And so I did sales. I was able to generate cash. I was able to sell inventory, and I was able then to order again from our artisans so they had work. So, I made different decisions like that. We have an e-commerce business, which I built the website about 6 months prior to the pandemic, and just took all of my e-commerce marketing strategies and implemented those, right away. We took, the government programs with PPP and EIDL and all of that. And that was a lot, just being on every single webinar you could be on, trying to figure the whole thing out. It was challenging. So we spent like a lot of time just really trying to think about how do we get through this, not even knowing at that point. Again, we didn't know how long this would be. We just knew we had to try to keep things going. So, we were like every other company out there, every other small business out there is just trying to figure it out and try to, on a daily basis, how do you make this whole thing work? So, I totally feel for every company or person that's gone through all of that.
Yeah. And one of the success stories. So, you have been able to pivot your business. Specifically, how have you pivoted your business to better accommodate your customers' needs?
So, as I mentioned, e-commerce, digital marketing strategies, basic block and tackle.
Explain that block and tackle.
It's just on a daily basis, you look at what can I do today to try to get people to our site, because at that time, it was a total shutdown of the business, and our business prior to the pandemic had been, the majority of it had been in the store, and it had been for 75 years or 74 years at that point. And so really reaching out to all of our customer base, we were fortunate we did have, many emails, but contacting our customers and encouraging them to buy. We did things like, we had a lot of Zoom where I brought my artisans so ways to include, our customer base and our artisans. We had authors on, so I tried to encourage as much interaction and community as I could when, we were all just trying to figure out how to keep things going, which has been great because people love those. I did cooking with Italian restaurants and, all kinds of different things just to kind of get people engaged.
Very good. So are you using social media for some of this?
Yes. Yeah, that was definitely, we had been working on it, but we amped that up as well, which we, obviously Facebook and Instagram, but we started Pinterest, which is very good for home decor and that type of thing. So we have, built up our social channels and, still working on doing a lot of that.
Yeah. I've been in the store when you've received calls from Texas and New York and et cetera, ordering dinner plates for a wedding,
Right.
So
right.
you know, your reputation goes far. But tell me,
you.
what do you love about your business?
What I love the most is working with the artisans. I didn't come into this knowing that, but it really is so incredible. I'm working with these really talented, you know, everything's handmade, everything's hand painted. They're incredible. And I love when people walk into the store and, you know, have your experience. And that happens all the time, that people walk in, you hear them, you know, like, oh, like it's amazing knowing, again, the artisans and the work they put into it, and then understanding, you know, how people find so much joy in the products is just, I love that. And everything else is, you know, kind of why I do that is because like that kind of feeling. So much of it is like the emotion tied to it. Certainly the economics are important, but a lot of it's just the, you know, how you know I feel when I'm here.
That's great. But I know there are some aspects of it that you may actually hate. What are they?
Again, I go back to the very kind of mundane things that have to happen, that, you know, we get, I love when we get shipments like Christmas from our artisans, but then they've all got to be unpacked, and then you have to like deal with all the boxes, and then you have to deal, like, so there's just like all of the, you know, the romantic side of it is amazing, but there's still, it's like the really, really hard physical work that has to happen in order to run the business. And so I don't hate it, but it's just like, oh my gosh, there's like 1,000 boxes down there that we need to process and we need to like do something with. And, you know, it's just a part of the work, but it's what I enjoy the least, I would say.
Yes. Rather than hate, enjoy the least.
Right. Yeah, that I don't like to use that word.
Yeah. I have to say that, you know, Deborah's store is just so beautiful. It's included on many walking tours of North Beach, and it's one of the highlights of the tour. So it, as you said before, it is like walking into a museum, you know. So one of the things Deborah won't say is, you know, how she loves dealing with her artisans in Italy, and loves them so much that she gave them extra Christmas bonuses because Italy had a particularly hard time during the pandemic. So I'm sure that was much appreciated. So, what areas have you sought outside help for?
Well, again, during—
You can't do it all. You can't do it all.
Right. Well, I would say during the pandemic, there's certainly things that, you know, I don't have expertise in. And so through the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, was very helpful in terms of, again, kind of navigating, you know, a lot of these programs that, again, not knowing what we really qualified for and what we didn't qualify for. And there was just like so much out there and so much kind of over information. And so I have sought the help of the SBDC with some of the programs, the PPP, again, and EIDL programs, as well as, again, the legacy. We are up for legacy status in San Francisco, which is really wonderful. And so, again, not my area of expertise. And so I've sought help with it, SBDC there also. So, you know, it's helpful to have, when you don't have the expertise, to be able to have a community of people that you can go to help and to assist, so that you can kind of figure out how to get through some of it.
Yeah, and that's certainly where the SBDC comes in, and, you know, adding assistance where needed with entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs are guilty of trying to do everything. You don't have the expertise, so that they make mistakes. So, how's business now that we've opened up, and are you seeing more foot traffic in your stores and
June was great. We doubled our business versus last year, which, again, last year was mostly the e-commerce business, so we were able to layer on top of it the foot traffic, people coming in the store, which is fantastic. And July's been the same so far. So we're hoping that we can continue the trend of the e-commerce business, just keep that growing. as really the growth part of our business. And people are coming back in the store, and they're so happy to be out. And there's some really cute stories about this one woman walked in only about a month ago, and it was her first outing in like a year and a half, and she had to have her husband bring her here, and she was just just thrilled to be out. And so everyone that walks in the door today is just so happy to be out and about, and it's a nice feeling. It's really, really incredible. So I'm hoping that this continues and that we're all through the hardest part of this.
Yeah. And keeping in mind, part of your business comes from not only tourists, but also locals.
Yes.
Balance, can you tell, are there more locals coming in? Are there more tourists coming in? What do you think?
Right. It's still more locals, though we do have some tourists now. But initially, when we opened, really opening up again, first off, last year, the entire year, even though people could go out, they really didn't go out. So this year, people have started to come out, and it was almost all locals up until probably the last month and a half or so. Now we're starting to see some tourists, from different parts of the country. Not too much international at this point, but different parts of the country are starting to come in. But I would say still, it's the majority are people around in California that are just come to San Francisco for a day or something like that. But hopefully that will also change soon.
Of course, as a marketing advisor, I'm thinking, okay, Deborah, which marketing vehicle worked best for you? Was it your social media strategy? Was it your online strategy? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yes. Well, for us, it was definitely our e-commerce and specifically our email marketing campaigns that drove the business. I also started SEO, which is search engine optimization. Started that last year. I really hadn't put any money behind it. Because our website was new, we were ranking quite low. But that has also just of late, that's really started to kick in for us, which is great. So social and it's not, I think it drives awareness, but not necessarily revenue so far. A little bit of revenue, but not a lot for us. But certainly, it's more traditional digital marketing strategies that every company I've been in really, really works is your emails and building up your email list and having really relevant content, doing sales occasionally, talking about artisans occasionally, talking about new arrivals occasionally, so mixing it up. I'm also very careful with our customers not to inundate them with emails. I try to stick to 1 or 2 a week, but as you know, most retail companies have at least one every day or several a day. And so I've chosen not to do that. But emails do work, particularly if you have a very engaged customer base, which we do.
So I have the pleasure at your 75th anniversary to meet one of your very loyal customers who comes in once a week to buy a gift for someone.
Yes.
And we all wish we had that kind of customer client.
Yes. I definitely had customers in the pandemic that kept us alive. That they were buying gifts for people that, this one customer literally every week that we had so many loyal customers that would, they were just going to ensure that we were, we made it through it, which is just amazing. It's incredible.
True.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about your customers, tell us a little bit more of who your customer is. Yes. Okay. It's local. It may be a tourist who passes through, but give us the demographic profile. Are you seeing commonality?
Yeah. So, well, I like to define them as Italiophiles, which are basically people that love all things Italy. So, they have an emotional connection. So they may have traveled to Italy. They may be Italian, or they may have just traveled there. And there was just this feeling that they had, and they saw some of these type of ceramics when they were there, and they maybe didn't purchase them. So there's a lot of that. Is people that just love Italy, and there's that feeling. Then there's the locals that just know us, and we've been the go-to place for wedding gifts because they're very special and they're very unique. And so we have those. We have customers that their families have shopped here for generations, and so they keep that alive. So we have different really groups of customers that love Biordi, and most of our marketing prior to the website was word of mouth. It's just like people that, purchased Biordi, they talked about Biordi, they told their friends about it. So that was until we built the website, how everyone found out about us.
Mm-hmm. So Deborah, I have been a customer of Biordi's since before you and Michael bought it. I see an incredible transformation between Biordi's before and Biordi's now. So talk to me about the vision you and Michael had of, you were longtime customers of Biordi's.
Yes.
And the opportunity arose where you could actually purchase it from the previous owner, and you had a vision. And
right.
How long did it take you to, come up with your vision and then to actually implement it?
Well, I would say, first of all, my vision was just to have this place, which was already this iconic store, just be this, when you walk through the door, that you felt like you were transported into Italy, and that it was a place that you could come and just see beautiful, beautiful, we call it functional art. So really a lot of the changes that I made was to really transform. The product is a lot the same. I've added, some new, more modern pieces, but it's how I merchandise the store. It's how, I wanted there to be more free space so that when you walked in, you could, you hear the Italian music, but you could really see the beautiful pieces of art, and that it is displayed like art. Whereas before it was, like many of the Italian shops, you would walk in, there was like, beautiful art, but it was everywhere and sometimes a little overwhelming. Whereas how we've merchandised is so that you can really appreciate like every piece. And there's so much more I want to do still in terms of telling the stories of the artisans, and so that you could get to know that piece of work that you love, that you could get to know Ivana, who actually created this and who handmade, so you would know her. So there's a lot more I want to do still in terms of making it this kind of interactive, incredible experience. But it took a while. It took a while for me to, transition it over to get it to where it is today. But it's not, in any means ending right now. I have like so many more ideas of how I could make it even, that more a fabulous experience when someone walks in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from the moment you walk in, you hear the music and you see, and you don't know where to look. So
thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about merchandising, because many of my retailers, in my mind, don't change their windows often enough. So any pointers on merchandising?
Well, you definitely need to show freshness. I mean, it's a fine line, because you want to show, for my business anyway, you want to show that you still have the traditional, beautiful pieces. But also, for instance, right now I have all of the Testa d'Amore heads, like I showed you, like this in the window, which is very, very artsy. Now, a lot of people stop and take pictures. It pulls a lot of much more modern customers into Biordi than would have ever walked in the door previously. Mm-hmm. But next to that, I've got, big Florentine vases and wall plates that are much more traditional with the lemons and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So, for our store, it's, I don't want to turn off those customers that are traditional customers that have been longtime customers and want the more traditional. However, I want to ensure that I also have products that are really interesting. to the newer, maybe younger, maybe more modern consumer that wants maybe a different aesthetic. And so that is one thing for our business as well, as we've had to transition the inventory from not just having, really traditional. Is I have all that still, but I also have more modern, and because you need to appeal to both. When I worked at Levi Strauss and Company, believe it or not, at that time we were like trying to figure out only, like, we would say, like, old people were wearing Levi's. Now that seems hard to believe, but like every single brand kind of goes through that. Is you've got a certain customer base, and your customer base ages, and unless you change, unless you evolve, then you will lose, the new customers. And so Levi's obviously changed, they figured it out. And that's one of the things that we are doing as well, is ensuring that, there's freshness, there's newness, that we do change the windows out occasionally, because we're at a great spot here in North Beach, which is this amazing area. And there is a lot of foot traffic, and the windows do pull people in. It is, and they're saying, like, I couldn't, not walk in because of what I saw out there. And then they have this whole other experience once they walk through the store.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Work-wise, is there anything you wished you had done sooner?
No, I mean, I think everything happens when it's supposed to. I think for me, all of my experiences that led up to us owning Biordi at this point, it's why we were able to make it through the pandemic. It's why, all of those different experiences, all of, again, successes and failures, have got us to the point where right now I'm much more confident in terms of, getting through the challenges and getting through the tough times, because of everything that I've been through.
Before we go, are there any other words of wisdom you'd like to share with other entrepreneurs?
Yes, I guess my last thoughts is like, do what you're passionate about. And I know, again, that's super cliche, but it's not worth it spending time in your life doing things that you hate. So do what you love, and then also surround yourself with, like, amazing people. And if you do that, it's not work. It's basically, I don't feel, again, like I've ever, like, dreaded one day, even the hard days, dreaded one day here at Biordi.
Yeah. So, last parting words: be passionate about what you're doing, because if you're passionate, it's not work at all, right?
Yes, exactly.
Deborah, I want to thank you so much. We've been talking to Deborah Baldini, one of the owners of Biordi Art Imports, located in North Beach, right on the corner of Vallejo and Columbus. You can't miss it. And if you want a little taste of Italy, stop in Biordis. Again, thank you.
Thank you.